y'all see the Shang-Chi trailer yet? Yeah. What do you think?
Strong. Much better. Yeah, I mean, much more compelling than the first one.
I was going to ask you how you felt. I never watched the first one, but how you felt versus the first one.
Man, the first one I was like, oh, that looks cool. The second one, I'm like, dude, this looks badass. Yeah. I mean,
looks like they're going to explain his magic in it.
Yeah.
So number one, I never thought I'd be excited to see Razor Fist. And now I'm just like, I want Razor Fist. I'm really, like, I get kind of giddy when he shows up, because who the fuck is going to put Razor Fist in the thing? It doesn't make any kind of rational sense.
Razor Fist.
Right? He's going to be on a movie.
Yeah.
Because he's Razor Fist.
We got Taser
Long
Face.
fighting abomination.
Mm-hmm. And then the dragon, who the internet is ceaselessly arguing over.
I mean, their toys are saying it's not Fin Fang Foom, but it's totally Fin Fang Foom.
So I think it could be. It's one of those things, like, it depends on which way they want to go with it, because, he's not the only...
There's only one dragon in Marvel that matters.
No.
Well, that looked like a traditional Chinese dragon.
I was going to say, so if they want to go the Iron Fist route, he could be like one of the 7 protectors of heaven.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what they're doing with it. He's going to end up being.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you want to read up on those, you need to check out the Dave Wachter drawn Iron Fist miniseries that just wrapped up, because that shit.
Yeah, somehow
bananas.
I didn't get on that list, and I usually get on the Iron Fist stuff, but somehow I didn't get on that one on my full list. But yeah.
If Dave Walker's drawn it, I'm getting it.
Of course, the last Iron Fist I read was really good to like the last 2 issues, when then they turned his building into a mecha.
Oh yeah,
for him to fight with.
Hey, these things happen.
Yeah,
but should they?
Well, I mean, that's not in that series.
They happen, but should they happen?
Probably not. But hey, everybody sitting at home, welcome back to another episode of the Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. If I'm not mistaken, this is episode 184, I think. I'm not sure. We'll have to check. Don't have everything. Man, doing this live and in person really fucks me up when I don't have my list of episodes that we've done before. But as usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon?
And I think I'm Craig Lance.
the questionable Matt Trogdon. And we are recording live in person. We've got ourselves around the table this morning. Hope everybody had a good week. We're back once again to talk about comics. Got a little surprise for you. It's not going to be an average show. We like to mix things up at the end of the month. So, just stay tuned and we'll see what's going on with that. Matt's gonna throw a wrench in the machine and just fuck it all up.
Pure chaos.
Oh, it's chaos.
How you guys been this week? Did you have a good weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the plural of weeks? Did we ever figure that out?
Weeks.
Yeah, not bad. It was a long week at work, but outside of that, it was a good week.
Nice. Did you watch some baseball?
I mean, did the sun come up?
Yeah.
A lot.
Oh, that burning day ball. Fuck it. No, it was a fun week. It was busy, but did you guys get any comics read? I think is probably the more important question there.
Yeah.
What'd you read? I want to hear about it.
You do?
I want to hear all about it.
Okay.
Can you tell me 3 things, as a matter of fact?
Only 3. Okay.
Coincidentally,
I have 3 sitting here.
Ooh.
The first one, well, one of the ones I read was Proctor Valley Road #4.
Mm-hmm.
Boom Studios, Grant Morrison, Alex Child, Naomi Franquez, and Tamara Bonvillain. Is it Bonvillain or Bonvillain?
I say Bonvillain, but that's because I'm fancy.
Yeah, I don't know either. So that continues to be one of the newest and best horror books that are out.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, I like my horror comics, and this one's a good one. I don't know totally what Grant Morrison's involvement in it is, but still, it doesn't feel like a Grant Morrison book.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if the concept was his or if he's working on the scripts or whatever. But it is takes place in my hometown in San Diego. I mean, I didn't live in Chula Vista where it's taking place, but San Diego's all San Diego.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so there's that. And then I finished Luna by Maria Lovett. Boom Studios. It was issue #5. Again, absolutely beautiful book. One of the fresh young talents that's out right now, and I'm going to pick up every book she's drawing and writing. And I think it was a vampire werewolf story, but love story. on acid. I think that's what it was.
Wow.
They killed all the other vampires, and they lived happily ever after on LSD on the moon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I think
Did you
that was-
finish it?
Yeah,
That's
no,
pretty
I
much
did.
what happened, right?
Man.
Yeah, there was
Classic romance story.
her obsession with like the summer of love and the psychedelic. She's able to almost like transmute psychedelic rock into like a visual format, and
She
that's
draws it
a
really,
lot of
really
what
well.
it is.
Yeah.
But no, there was an elder god, there was a cave,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden hippie
And
vampires.
the elder god was a vampire.
Yeah, hippie vampires and
Yeah,
love
that needed
stories.
his blood to survive, and he released them from their pain by destroying them. So,
like you do.
yeah. And then I read another vampire story.
See, did he
Apparently,
live
all of
around
mine
here?
are horror stories this week. I didn't even realize that. But American Vampire 1976, subtitled Bite Them Back. This is the penultimate in this entire series, I believe. They're fighting the quote-unquote the beast. It's the devil, because he's taking human form. And through this entire 9 issues of this story arc, main vampire, and his name just escaped me, totally has been depowered.
Mhm.
At the end of this book, he gets back his powers and is going to go fight the devil, apparently. So this is a DC Black Label. Of course, it's Scott Snyder and Raphael Albuquerque with Dave McCaig on it. And if you haven't read the series, it is a really interesting take on the vampire genre. And the first few issues way back when they started this back 2008 or 9, somewhere in there, Stephen King actually wrote some backstories in the first few issues, which were kind of the draw to get people in, because people didn't really know who these other creators were at the time. Turned out that they, became pretty popular creators.
Stunning. So let me ask you this. So I have not read the original American Vampire. Do you need to read that before you read 1776 or whatever?
You do. I mean, it gives you enough of backstory as what's going on, but the entire series is well worth the read.
Okay.
It is.
Monkeys in space.
Yeah, but it's how he got depowered.
Vampire
Yeah, I mean, there
monkeys in
is a
space.
weird ending to the first set, but
We went from hippies on the moon to monkeys
it was
in
it was
space.
the 60s.
It was the 60s.
All of my books
You know what? I
have weird
stand
shit
corrected.
happening with vampires in the 60s. I don't know what to tell you.
Psychotropes.
Yeah, I mean, even Proctor Valley Road takes place back in the 60s. The whole thing starts because there's 4 girls that are trying to get money to go to a Janis Joplin concert. And
Okay, boomer.
No, this is what's funny is Craig. So like I was not surprised when Craig like found himself in a horror niche, because that's Craig. Craig loves, but like to have 3 books that fit such a specific genre of
it was completely accidental, too.
of 60s psychotrope inspired horror books that involve space. Like, leave it to Craig to find like that.
I mean, Proctor
tire
Valley
track to
Road,
fit
they
in.
haven't went to space yet, but, it's only a matter of
Right,
time.
no, it's
it's
gotta
Grant
happen.
Morrison's
Yeah.
involved. I mean, there's definitely some LSD and some
He's
space.
gonna
happen.
bend the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To these poor teenage girls. Oh, it was funny. One of the girls in the book, she's in love with this guy, and she asked him out on a date, and he says, "Well, yeah, that sounds right up my alley, but I was going to ask you how if your cousin was interested in going." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, she's into girls." She's not.
Nice.
Oh, I need to correct myself when I was referring to Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison goes by they them pronouns, so I need to slap my hand. I did wrong. I mispronounced.
Yeah, I forgot he changed that, or they changed that.
So try to keep up with these things. What'd you read this week, Matty Matt?
Well, I read from Marvel Comics Fantastic Four Life Story number 2, The 70s. This is by Mark Russell, Sean
Isaacs.
Okay, that's better. And Nolan Woodward. 2 things are going to happen on this show consistently. We're going to talk about comics, and names will be mispronounced.
Just every time.
This is cool. Are y'all reading this?
Yeah.
This Fantastic Four?
I am not. I need to be, but
Yeah. Mark Russell, one of the most dependable writers out there. The art's really great. I really like, he's really getting into Doctor Doom in this issue. Really dig on that stuff. Highly recommend that one. I also read from Marvel number 3, Nonstop Spider-Man by Joe Kelly, Chris Bocciolo, Tim Townsend, and Marcio Menez. See, I'm consistent. This is cool, man. This is awesome story.
It's the best
very
Spider-Man happening.
It's very simple story. It's very linear. The characterizations are great. I love the Luchador brothers in this issue. I love their dialogue, their back and forth. This was this is a really cool series, and the art in this is so good. This guy, his art really fits this kind of dynamic.
Nice.
We've been talking about who's going to take over Spider-Man. I wonder if it'll be Joe Kelly.
That'd be a great fit.
I could see that.
Nonstop Spider-Man's the best Spider-Man going on right now. So.
And then third on my short stack, I once again went back to the 90s, to 1993 specifically, and picked up from Image Comics, Trencher #1.
I've heard of this.
Created, written, and drawn by one Keith Giffen.
Yeah.
Colored and lettered by Laverne Kindzierski. Quote, just two guys trying to make an honest buck. I remember this being advertised heavily back in the 90s. And it was one of those that I never picked up, but I saw it talked about everywhere. Very interesting book, very unique art. Should have come with an epilepsy trigger warning.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like it would have fit into my 2 books.
The art on this is frenetic.
Yeah.
It is like nothing I've ever really seen before. Some panels you really have to study to figure out what's going on. And this poor bastard that colored this thing, he must have owned Keith Giffen money or something, because this is a serious undertaking. But just because of the complete chaotic style in which this was penciled and inked. But, I mean, it's a sci-fi story. I just read this. This is the only exposure to this material I've ever had. I don't know. If you're looking for something very unique, interesting, very reminiscent of martial law, actually, the Pat Mills, Kevin O'Neill story, very reminiscent of that as far as just the overall feel of the story. But I can't say it's definitely not boring. Feels very clever. The art, as chaotic and frenetic as it is interesting to look at. It really forces you to study each panel. But the series didn't last. I did some research. I don't think it went beyond just a handful of issues.
Yeah. So I remember hearing about it.
It was talked about a lot. I remember seeing this out there a lot. And Keith Giffen I've seen a lot of his art. This is a complete departure for him to illustrate this way. I guess it was just an experiment of his.
Just an honest guy trying to make a buck.
Yeah, and so he decided to illustrate this very specifically and very different to give the overall material a very chaotic and messy feel.
Yeah.
So in that way, I mean, it.
Oh, I respect that. Like
it did its job. Interestingly enough, I guess this is a. I don't know what kind of issue this is. I don't know if it's a direct market issue or a newsstand issue, but something that stuck out is the paper is not glossy newsprint. Well, it's just, I think this is what they would call Baxter paper.
Okay.
It's just above newsprint, but it's not the glossy paper of the 90s that Image was using. So yeah, if this had been glossy, I would have had a seizure. I mean, the fact that this wasn't glossy dulled it, the colors down just enough and the frenetic pace just enough for.
There's almost like if you took Jeff Darrow and you dipped him in like the 90s, that's the best explanation I can come, because
this is like it very much felt like a mixture of maybe Jeff Darrow and Kevin O'Neill.
Right.
I mean, I just got a lot of Kevin O'Neill
I can
out
see
of
it.
this.
I can 100% see it.
It looks like some of the heavy metal shorts from the movie Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
If you if tangent lines are a thing that bothers you, this is not the book for you.
Yeah, that'll give you a seizure.
There's tangent lines everywhere. Well, for my short stack, I want to jump in the Wayback Machine. You guys cool with that? I want to take us back to around 1972 and the glorious years that was. Bronze Age in full swing, right? And all 3 of my books come from that era, and they come from the House of Ideas. And there's a reason why, and I'll tell you why these 3 books connect at the end of my short stack. So, first and foremost, I read Doctor Strange #183 this past week. Now, this is a Doctor Strange. I have not read a lot of like Bronze Age Doctor Strange, and so when he's in his astral form, he has this like it's a weird look to him. He almost looks like a Charlton Comics superhero. But so he is trying to chase down this idol in this. Yes.
Who's the creative team?
Ooh. I'm glad you asked. It was Roy Thomas as the writer, the great Gene Colan doing the lines, Tom Palmer on the inks, and I think the colors as well. But Gene Izzo as the letterer, and edited by Mr. Stan Lee. And so essentially, what happens in this story? Doctor Strange is trying to hunt down. There is a creature from the Elder World, and these are the nameless ones that are trying to break into the world, and he has to track down these creatures through a totem and stop them from ending the world like you do. And it cues him into the fact that there's a larger mystery at foot. Then if you go to another book around the same time, you can jump over to Submariner, number 22, from the same era. Written by, get this, Roy Thomas. Drawn by the wonderful Marie Severin, an artist that I cannot get enough of. And just because I've had Ditko on the brain after reading Zach Crucy's book, like I see Marie Severin's art, there's a direct line to Steve Ditko there that I've never noticed before, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. In this, the Submariner is, he's about to get married. He's got a lot of things going on, but everything that was set up in that last Doctor Strange issue kind of crosses over with this totem that was about to bring in all of this evil into the world, and the Submariner has to stop it. And he finds something in the seafloor that's akin to this totem. Then who shows up to connect the dots but none other than Doctor Strange. So you get this really cool team up between Submariner and Doctor Strange, and there's a cat involved. An evil cat, a demon kitty, if you will. And you just, really cool team up, just Bronze Age wonderfulness, distilled down to a T. Lots of bang, boom, fighting, punching. Roy Thomas is just incredible. The next month, Incredible Hulk, number 126. Get this, written by Roy Thomas. Man was doing work. This is drawn by the great Herb Trimp. Artie Simek did some of the letters, and edited by Stan Lee. And there is a mansion, a haunted mansion that the Hulk just happens to stumble upon, and it just happens to be the same haunted mansion that, you guessed it, Doctor Strange is inside trying to really wrap up the totem and stop the nameless ones from crossing the boundary and getting.
Sounds like delicate work that the Hulk should be involved.
Yes.
in.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, the scalpel that is the Hulk, but it works out because there is this creature called the Nightcrawler, not the X-Men, the Nightcrawler, but this other creature from the Nethers that works with all the nasty that sinks off into the nameless one's realms. And he's kind of a bruiser, and the Hulk has to fight him and save the day, and he does. So the reason I read those things is because those are the first three stories in that set up the Defenders, and I bought the new omnibus. And of course, the Defenders is the team that's not a team, created by Roy Thomas to be kind of a foil for the Avengers. But no, it's really cool because apparently what happened is he had this particular story, this series of team-ups planned for Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange got canceled. And so so he decided to spread it out across it. And it was so well liked, the readership tapped into it so much, he did the next story called the Trio of Titans, or something with the Titans, where he brought in Silver Surfer. All of that led to the creation of the Defenders. And so, I love the Defenders. It's the team that's got two of my favorite characters of all time in it, being Namor and the Hulk. So I had to check it out. I've never actually read this stuff before. It's super fun. And shout out to our friends over at 11 O'Clock Comics, because they're the reason I got this book, because they did a deep dive as a Book of the Month episode. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to read along. So if you like the Defenders and you want some broader commentary, like an hour and a half worth of just really smart things being said, you should go check out their episode where they did that on. It's well worth the read and the listen. So it's fun stuff.
I really miss the bright colors of the 70s in comic books. not that what we have isn't fantastic, because it is, but sometimes just seeing those really brightly colored pages from the 70s. And
well, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Like, it's the colors and just everything about it was derived from the fact that these were like, these were not produced to be the high art and some of the things that we see today. They didn't have the same production value, and the colors really stand. And this I think has been recolored a little bit, but it's still it still stands out as some of exactly what you're talking about. They're popping. The colors just pop off the page.
It's interesting to see what this Sal Buscema art looks like versus what it looked like as the years went by, specifically how the Hulk looks.
Do you know who inked? I think on that. Who inked him on that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's I think that's why.
I can't help but believe that's definitely got something to do with it.
Tell the kids at home while you're looking at that who it was.
Oh, I passed it by.
It was the same person who inked the great Frank Miller on a lot of his stuff, and we'll let the kids go figure that out.
Okay, so that's not what I saw.
Okay, so no, and some of that. Yeah. Some of that, it's crap. Now that I wanted to say his name, I can't say his name. Why can't I think of his name?
Because Matt has your book.
That's also a valid point. No, it was. It's gonna bug me. I hate when I can't remember names. He inked Frank Miller on a ton of his stuff, and I just can't pull his.
Klaus Janson.
Klaus Janson, yes. Klaus Janson was inking Sal on this.
I knew Matt was going to bail you out at some point.
He was just letting me dangle like a fish like a worm on a hook. That's what that was. But yeah, that's my short stack, and they all, like I said, all three derived. That's the build up to the Defenders. So
He
really good
appreciates
stuff.
the bail out.
I really do. My brain does not work well at all. It's overburdened with glorious purpose.
It's early on Sunday morning.
That does not.
Man, alcohol and not enough coffee has been distributed.
These are all facts. So, what brought us here today? We gathered here to talk about comics, did we not?
We are gathered here today.
Marriage. No. We, like we always do, got together and we put our noggins together, and through some form of osmosis, we decided to read the same book so we can talk about it. We call this our roundtable book, if you're new to the show. It's a fun experiment. We used to not do this. We would all just bring our own book, but it's really interesting for all three of us or whoever we have on the show to read a book and to bounce our ideas off one another. And it's really fun. Now, to do that, we kind of have to spoil some things, right? These are books. They're fresh off the shelf. We'll try to keep it low key.
Mine and your books are always fresh off the shelf. Matt's are usually from the 90s.
Yeah, I like dusting off the old stuff.
Pulls up that...
You've been trying to forget about this, hadn't you?
Just escaped your dreams, and now it's coming back. So we got together this week, and we've given you a spoiler warning so we can move on with our lives, but we decided to read Batman Reptilian. This is a Black Label book from DC. It was written by Garth Ennis and illustrated by Liam Sharp. And before we dig into the meat and potatoes of it all, what did you guys think? Craig, we'll start with you, buddy.
Yeah, I enjoyed this book a whole lot. It was an interesting take on Batman, which you would expect from Garth Ennis. And Liam Sharp's art, of course, is always fantastic. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I felt about the painting of his art, because you lose some of the fine detail he does in his line work with the painting. But I felt like by the end of this book, it really worked for what they were doing in this story.
I loved it. I loved this book.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I fucking hated it. I'm joking. No, I just wanted to see.
Now that you hated it, go ahead and give us a breakdown of this book.
Yeah, I just wanted to see the
and then this page sucked.
I want to see the vein in Matt's temple just start to throb. No, I really did enjoy this book. And before you get into the actual pages of the book, I got to say, it made me, I don't know if happy is the right word, but it made me feel some kind of way to see on the very first page, this note to Steve Dillon. Or this note of Steve Dillon that dedicates this book to Steve Dillon.
Yeah.
Who passed away, 2 years now? Or 3 years now? So I forget
going
what
on
the exact
2-3
date.
years, yeah.
But
this book was actually written, Garth Ennis wrote it for Steve Dillon to draw. And of course he was not able to, especially the last year of his life where he was really sick. But Liam Sharp gives him a really good note just saying, hey, you were like a brother to me. I would rather you have done this book. I'd rather you be here, but I could feel you standing over my shoulder, poking fun at my art, which is, just kind of like reading that. Like I said, put me in some kind of a headspace. I'm just like, I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
So the book opens up like any good Batman story that's kind of not really a one-off, but just kind of transitioned off by itself. It really dips you into the politics of Gotham, I think, and to the nastiness that Gotham is. There's this guy, he's a boxer, by all accounts, probably a terrible person, and he's just gotten through a trial. His lawyer got him off from, brutally hurting two women. We don't really know to what extent, but you can kind of guess. And Batman, being Batman, shows up because he can't let an unjust thing stand, to kind of goad the man a little bit, and goad him he does. The guy attacks him. Batman never really touches him. Just does just enough to put the man, like, let him beat himself. As far as kind of just the fact that he's a tactician, he knows how to do the most with the least. And so that happens, and he goes back to the cave, and where Alfred kind of goads him a little bit. He talks to him. He's like, well, that seemed like a little public, don't you think? And Batman's just like, nah, it is what it is.
Real quick,
whatever.
while you're talking about Alfred,
Mm-hmm.
Am I the only one that thought he looked a little bit like Robert Trejo?
Yeah, no, I did too. I had that exact thought. I saw this and I'm like, oh, that's Robert Trejo.
I expected him to sell me some vegan tacos.
Yeah, no, I like literally, like, especially if you go to like the kind of the second page of the Batcave scene, that bottom panel.
Yeah,
where he's standing
that's
in
where
front
it
of the
stood out to
Batmobile.
me. Yeah,
yeah, no, he looks 100% like Danny Trejo. But
Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Robert. Yeah. Anyways.
Robert Trejo is the bassist for Metallica.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But so I'm sitting there checking that out, and it just cracked me up. But Alfred's kind of goading him a little bit, just being really snarky. Like, this is an Alfred with a sense of humor, who just wants to, he always has to get the last word. And as they're sitting there, something gets called out. Like, there's a disturbance in Gotham that Batman has to go check out. Long story short, because I don't want to ruin just how fucking fun this book is, something has started systemically dismantling the villains of Gotham in an incredibly brutal way. I mean, you've got people stuffed into the chest cavity of other people. The Riddler has been, like, rended in twain. He's been cut from the nut to the forehead. It just and the Penguin is just dismantled. So all of these villains are being just broken and brutalized, and we really, other than the name association, we don't really know who it could be. Now, name association, you kind of think it's Killer Croc, but we don't know for sure. But that's where I would lean to, and Batman has to kind of go through and figure out who's doing this. And he doesn't necessarily get an answer, but there is this, like, throughout the book, you get this great kind of rundown of his rogues gallery being illustrated by Liam Sharp, and it's wonderful. And so by the end of the book, he gets to a spot where he's doing the street work. Like, he's got he's got a direction pinged, and it all has to do with one of the Penguin's former henchmen. That he has got some information.
I was terrified for the guy.
Oh, 1,000%. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of the story. Again, I don't want to get into too much because A, it is a new book, and B, everyone should read this book. So kind of getting into the art a little bit. Not even. I don't even. It is really hard to separate the art and the writing in this book because they play up so well. Like, the book is ethereal. Like, and Craig, I 100% get what you were saying about some of the line work and it being such a dark book. But what I like about this book is the same thing I liked about Dave McKean and Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, a serious whatever the long title was.
Yeah, so my reservations had to do with I know the amount of detail that Liam does in his work, and then to paint the pages in such broad strokes to cover up all that detail. but it totally made sense within the context of this book. So I was not mad by the art at all in this book. It was the first couple of pages. I'm like, well, this is an interesting take on Liam Sharp's work, but it totally made sense within the. You guys have heard me talk before too about how much I love when they actually present Batman as a detective, and that in this book was what really kind of grabbed me is. Batman is the greatest detective, and he's having to do some detective work, a little bit like Marv from Sin City does detective work.
I was going to say this is not necessarily detective as much as going and grabbing street level villains and threatening them with a life.
It's detective work because he's having to hunt down the pieces, but he's using a lot of intimidation to do that.
Yeah,
and it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's really fantastic.
This is my favorite type of Batman. First of all, the whole setting of the book is very dark. Gives it a very like foggy Ghostly. Or misty feeling, like
feels rainy, foggy,
Gotham feels dark, damp, and Batman is just a intimidating presence. And the opening, I loved the opening because he makes this appearance at this press conference, and his whole demeanor, I mean, he is full on in street vigilante mode, dark working from the shadows vigilante mode. I love this version of Batman. So I can't wait for the rest of this series to go on from that basis.
Well, and I think that's where you're talking about this version of Batman. Like I said, it reminded me of Morrison and McKean when they did that, because this Batman is a little bit more of a man than presented in Arkham Asylum. In Arkham Asylum, the Batman that they present there is just a specter, right? Like you can use your context, your brain to go on. This is Bruce Wayne in a suit, but you never really see that. You see a little bit more of him being a person in here, but in this, he is presented as exactly what the villains think Batman is, this ghostly specter, fearsome man. And what I like about the art is it shows you that, like, it breaks it down into this otherworldly, almost ethereal type form of not only Batman, like, you get some of the, the big horns and the curls from his cape, but you get that in the villains too. Like these are not drawn to be human. They are drawn to be caricatures of how just of their tropes, right? Like how evil,
they're nightmare versions,
exactly,
of these characters.
And I love the way that Liam Sharp laid that down. But on the flip side, Ennis's writing, it plays off that so much, and a lot of the story for me, once I'd read a few pages, I think it's summed up. It's predicated on the same type of ideal as when Rorschach says, I'm not stuck in here with you, you're stuck in here with me. A lot of the way that he writes Batman and the way that Batman presents himself to some of the people that he's breaking down is this idea of, oh, you've been told that Batman won't kill you. That's not the way you should think about it. It's that Batman won't let you die.
Yeah, you should fear me because I'm not going to let you die.
It's not that I'm not going to kill you. I will do everything in my power to make sure you cling to life. Yeah. But I will take you right up to that point. Yeah, that's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Like that's.
It was definitely terrifying.
Yeah, and I don't, as much as fun as the story is, like I don't like to think of a hero that way, right? Like that's like, I guess it's the older I get, the more like inclined to like Superman and stuff to be, but. Because this Batman is not a hero. Batman is a force of nature.
And that's a good point. That's why this story, a lot of people are not going to like it because they like the Batman saving babies Batman.
Right.
And this is the original Batman. Iteration of Batman. Yeah. He's not interested in saving. He's interested in punishing.
Right. Which I was going to say, Garth Ennis is Punisher.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of that makeup here.
Garth Ennis has, to me, always been like perfect to write a Batman story because he's so good at writing crime stories. And that being my favorite version of Batman is a street level crime fighter, not a hero. That's why I've always hated it that I think he doesn't do it on the regular.
Well, I think it's something that was in the first Batman movie in 1989. It kind of has that vibe at some points where he's got the guy hanging from the building, and he, which you didn't capture in the rest of the Batman series from that time, but there's just that kind of street level. He's gonna do everything but kill you.
Right.
So you may as well just go ahead and give him the information.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get it from you eventually.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, it reminded me a lot of Marv from Sin City. You know, I expected him to tell the guy.
Smart.
Huh?
Yeah. Smart. Well, Marv's killed people.
Well, you know, Marv telling the guy, you know, I expected Batman to say, "That's a nice coat," you know, at some point.
Yeah.
Because he was going to take it from him. You know, there was a lot going on there that just, as you said earlier, made me feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, you know, the original, again, the iteration, Batman does what he does to instill fear.
Yep.
And that's exactly the way he talks,
Yep.
is the way he dialogues with people in this book, is to instill fear. His whole presence with the guy on the roof,
Yeah.
Yep.
terrifying him. And
Well, and like you said, I think they've toned that down so much recently.
God, you think so?
Probably the last 10 years of Batman comics, it's really toned down.
yeah.
Probably
I
going
don't
back
even
to
know that you
Grant
could say
Morrison's.
that it was the last 10 years. I mean, you can go back to the 70s and to the
Well, yeah, I mean,
to
it's
the Atom stuff, and it's the same. So what I think that is, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that speaks to the flexibility of these characters, that you can have the animated Batman series, which is perfectly okay for any 5-year-old to watch, and you can have a book like this, which kids shouldn't read, quite frankly, because this is dark.
I
this
agree.
is
I disagree.
terrifying.
Kids should read this.
no. I,
this should be taught in schools. Thank you.
They should teach this as fine art in school.
Well, no, I think I don't disagree with that. I think it absolutely is fine art, and I think that this book is very literary in that sense. But
Well, and you mentioned the Batman the Animated Series. I think that's one of the best representations of the character. If you go back and watch that, there's a lot of detective work in that cartoon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of screen time where he is breaking into somebody's office and searching through their files. You know, I mean, it is a very street level detective story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that reminds me of this a lot.
But I think there's a lot. Paul Dini was really cool, really smart in the way that he kept a lot of the more brutal violence just off screen.
Oh yeah, it wasn't brutal.
Yeah.
No, it certainly wasn't brutally violent by any stretch of the imagination. But the whole, I mean, of course, you know, the whole production, they make a point that they used black paper instead of traditional white paper because they wanted the whole feeling to be gothic and dark like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the way the kills are described in this, but you don't necessarily see them.
No, it leaves everything up to your imagination.
I mean, you see the Riddler laying on the floor is about the extent of it, but it's described in such a way that you can visualize it, which is different than what you normally have in a comic. In a comic, normally it's the reverse of that. It's not described so much as shown. There's something a little bit more terrifying about that.
Well, there is, and I think that the way, like the type of art that Liam Sharp is giving us in this book, that allows your brain to do that, because he's not trying to make photorealistic work. The work that he's giving you is impression, and that's where, like I said, Dave McKean. I think there was a lot of Dave McKean in this book, just because he's channeling that this idea of we're going to give you the page, we're going to give you the shape of things, but we're going to let you fill in the details, and his art does that.
Reminds me of Sam Keith a lot.
A little bit, yeah.
Like I said, it's drawn as if it's all nightmare versions of these characters, including Batman, including Alfred, including everybody. And you were talking about the atmosphere, and I agree 100%. I was over here nodding my head when Matt was talking, because it's not a visual medium, so our listeners couldn't see that, but gave me a very Jack the Ripper of London vibe. And
Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's all there, guys. The atmosphere, the storytelling, the art. I don't know what else you want out of a book if this ain't it.
Oh, for this particular type of book, I think it was incredibly well crafted.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some people aren't. Some people aren't into traditional Batman stories, but if you're a Batman fan, I don't know what you're looking for if this isn't it in a Batman story.
And this is one of those, it feels like it's one of those special books. And it's kind of like I'm glad we don't get this all the time, because I think if we got this all the time, it would feel normal. Like I like the fact that we get these different iterations. And like I said, I do think, we're dealing with a character who's been around for 80 years. I like that throughout those years they've found a way to be flexible with all of them. Whether you're talking about Superman, or you're talking about Batman, or Wonder Woman, or any of the your JLA or Justice League characters, they're different. There's a reason why we don't just want one writer or one artist on them. We want a broad spectrum of people to. I'm
okay if Garth Ennis writes them forever.
See, I like Garth Ennis on this, but like I said, the lenses that we're able to see these characters through changes with creative team to creative team, and sometimes it's really great and sometimes it's not. But I like it when they mix it up a little bit, and we haven't seen this in a long time. Like this is way different than, because I've read the first 2 issues now of Ennis's or Ellis's Batman. It's a way different Batman. It's like, and I like that
also
we
a
get
good
that
version of Batman, but
excellent
version of Batman.
An excellent version of Batman, but not this.
Yeah. Do we believe that it's Killer Croc, or is Reptilian going to be like they talk about getting in touch with your reptilian side?
Reptilian brain, the reptile brain.
Reptile brain. Do we feel like, based on some of the concept art at the end of the book, I feel like it could very well be Batman getting in touch with his reptile brain? Or do we believe it's Killer Croc?
I think it's Killer Croc.
I mean, I don't really think about that kind of stuff. I just let it happen.
Yeah.
Well, so there's Craig brought up the kind of the art on the last page. There's this scene where you've got a Batman in profile, and he's got kind of like some scales and stuff around his eyes. And he's got a very like lizard-like eye. But if you look at, they're behind him, they're all of his rogues gallery, and they all have their eyes crossed out except for Killer Croc. So I think Killer Croc definitely.
I mean, it makes 100%.
Yeah, like I think that's the smart money.
Yeah.
Is to say that Killer Croc has something to do with this, but who knows if there's some type like. They talk about a chemical in this book. Like the guy says that he can taste. It's almost that you can taste it. So maybe there's some type of like gas that is going to transform it. So who knows? That's an issue too, kind of thing. But I
have no doubt it will be explained.
I want to see Killer Croc in this book.
I really like the character of Killer Croc. You don't see him very often. No. And he's a very, very simple character. He's just a big dumb brute. And I love that kind of character in
sometimes
Batman's world.
You just need a character that can swim in the sewer.
Yeah.
That wants BET TV.
Yeah. Can we just not
womp,
that movie?
womp.
Yeah, that movie got made. Somebody was given money for that. I need to go. I don't know what I would consider. I don't know off the top of my head if I remember any of the great Killer Croc. I know that they exist. I just can't think of what they are. I need to go do like a deep dive on the better Killer Croc stories.
You're not going to find many of them.
No.
I mean, the Batman the Animated Series Killer Croc is absolutely excellent.
Have you ever seen Killer Croc and King Shark team up? That'd be interesting. See how that works out.
I can't think of a team up between them.
Yeah. I've not read I've not read enough to know if that's a thing.
Yeah, it should be. That'd be funny. Like I want to see like somebody like Ben Templesmith write that. That'd be fun. just weird and dark. So, well, all right. No, this is going on my pull list. Like full fledged. I imagine it probably already is on.
Oh,
your
absolutely.
pull list,
it was on when it was announced. I put it on mine.
What about you, Craig?
Yeah, it's on mine.
Sticking with it.
Yeah,
nice. Well, all right. Well, show's over. Let's go home.
Womp,
womp, womp. No, Matt, as I alluded to earlier, did I really allude to it, or did I just flat out say it? Who weird words, has a little thing for us to do, a surprise. This is the end of the month. We like to throw a little chaos and mix it up, have a little fun on these last shows. So why don't you explain to the kids at home what exactly you have in store for us, Matt?
For today's chaos topic, I suggested that we do what's called the Eye of Argon challenge.
Mm-hmm.
The Eye of Argon was a piece of work, one could call it, written in the 70s by one Jim, it's either Teese or Thies.
Mm-hmm.
The author is now passed. He's not with us anymore. I believe
so it's okay to talk shit about him?
I believe he passed in 2002. Originally, this was published in a fanzine, a sci-fi fanzine out of Missouri, of all places. Became notorious as the years went by for being so bad it's funny. As the years went by and its notoriety grew, the Eye of Argon challenge became a thing. The Eye of Argon challenge, people would get together at parties and read the Eye of Argon aloud. And the challenge is, how far can you get without giggling? And whoever can go the furthest without giggling wins. So I thought it'd be really interesting to do that on the show. This is something I've actually been wanting to do for a long time. I read a lot of comics, obviously, but I've also read a lot of prose. So I really appreciate good writing. And
this isn't that, apparently.
I also really appreciate horrible writing.
Right.
It's like watching a bad movie for me.
Right.
It's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazingly bad. And I just get a real kick out of reading really bad writing. Now, you know, I read some history on this work. So it needs to be said, when this was originally published in this fanzine, some things we're losing in what we're going to read today is the illustrations that came along with the story, which were a thing to be held, apparently. The way that the work was spaced, apparently, was completely chaotic. The spacing between the sentences and the words, paragraph breaks for no apparent reason whatsoever, apparently were a thing. Everything about it was chaos and shoot from the hip, I guess, is a very kind way to say it.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. This is a barbarian story. So the genre that this work is based upon, I love. And I, again, have this weird appreciation for when it's done really, really poorly.
Okay.
I'm expecting...
So a couple of questions. Are we going to read till somebody starts giggling and then somebody takes over at that point?
Yep.
Okay, so we're not going to reread the same thing.
No.
Okay.
No.
Second, what is the record for how far somebody has gotten?
Well, there's no official record.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is
Are
something...
we setting it now?
We very well... We might as well say that we are.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever we do is the official world record of... Okay.
Making history here, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are listening to the official world record for the Eye of Argon challenge.
I really am expecting Roy Thomas to get unseated as chief barbarian writer here. Like that's I expect glory.
You are probably expecting too much.
Yeah.
All right.
Curb your expectations. Who wants to go first?
This was your idea.
So I say Caleb goes first.
Shit.
All right, so Caleb's going to start. When he starts laughing, we'll just go clockwise around the table.
Yeah, and this is...
Matt will take over.
Any giggling, any give, you lose. So who wants to keep time?
I'm going to pull my hat down a little bit. Well, I can't keep time because I've got to do things. I've got to do work, and I can't believe you're making me go first. This is shameful.
That's exactly what's happening.
This is shameful. Before I start, did you hear they backed up Dune to the end of October?
You know what? Why don't you just read the fucking story?
All right. The Eye of Argon, Chapter 1.
Do you need my glasses?
The weather-beaten trail wound ahead into the dust-racked climbs of the barren land which dominates large portions. Shit.
Okay. That didn't take long at all.
Not the record holder.
6 seconds.
6 seconds is the world record. Okay.
It's so bad.
Did you finish the first sentence?
No. He did not.
I'm going to say Craig goes next because I'm in charge.
Okay. Which dominates large portions of the Norgolian Empire. Age-worn hoof prints smothered by sifting.
Okay. That's 6 seconds.
Jesus.
This is so bad.
Okay. Where did you leave? Where did you...
Hoof prints.
All right, I'm going to start. Yeah, somebody start my timer.
Hold on, let me get a timer going. All right, go.
Age-worn hoof prints smothered by the sifting sands of time shone dully against the dust-splattered crust of Earth. The tireless sun cast its parching rays of incandescence from overhead. Halfway through its daily revolution, small rodents scampered about, occupying themselves in the daily accomplishments of their dismal lives. Dust sprayed over 3 heaving mounts in blinding clouds, while they bore the burdensome cargoes of their struggling overseers. "Prepare to embrace your creators in the Stygian haunts of hell, barbarian," gasped the first soldier. "Only after you have kissed the fleeting steed of death, wretch," returned Gringer. We're going to say his name is Gringer. A sweeping blade of flashing steel riveted from the massive barbarian's hide, enabled shield as his rippling right arm thrust forth, sending a steel-shod blade to the hilt into the soldier's vital organs. The disemboweled mercenary crumpled from his saddle and sank to the clouded sward, sprinkling the parched dust with crimson droplets of escaping life fluid. The enthused barbarian swiveled about, his shock of fiery red hair tossing robustly in the humid air currents as he faced the attack of the defeated soldier's fellow in arms. "Damn you, barbarian!" shrieked the soldier as he observed his comrade in death. A gleaming scimitar smote a heavy blow against the renegade's spiked helmet, bringing a heavy cloud over the accordion's misting brain. Shaking off the effects of the pounding blow to his head, Gringer brought down his scarlet-streaked edge against the soldier's crudely forged hauberk, clanging harmlessly to the left side of his opponent. The soldier's steel whinnied as he directed the horse back from the driving blade of the barbarian. Gringer leashed his mount forward as the hoarsely piercing battle cry of his wilderness-bred race resounded from his grinding lungs. A twirling blade bounced harmlessly from the mighty thief's buckler as his rolling right arm cleft upward, sending a foot of blinding steel ripping through the Cimmerian's exposed gullet. The gasping, gurgling from the soldier's writhing mouth as he tumbled to the golden sand at his feet and wormed agonizingly in his deathbed. Gringer's emerald green orbs glared lustfully at the wallowing soldier struggling before his chestnut-swirled mount. His scowling voice reverberated over the dying form in a tone of mocking mirth. "You city-bred dogs should learn not to antagonize your better." Reining his wary mounting ahead, Gringer resumed his journey to the Norregolian city of Gorzam, hoping to discover wine, women, and adventure to boil the wild blood coursing through his savage veins. The trek to Gorzam was forced upon Gringer when the soldiers of Kryn were released upon him by a faithless concubine he had wooed. His scandalous activities throughout the Cimmerian city had unleashed throngs of havoc and uproar. Turn the page.
This feels rehearsed to me. Correct?
Its refined patricians, leading them to tack a heavy reward over his head. He had barely managed to escape through the back entrance of the inn he had been guzzling in as a squad of soldiers pounced upon him. After spilling a spout of blood from a leader of the mercenaries as he dismembered one of the officer's arms, he retreated to his mount to make his way towards Gorzam, rumored to contain hordes of plunder and many young wenches for any man who has the backbone to wrest them away. In Chapter 1. Shall I continue?
This is the most terrifying human on earth right now, with his just like expressionless reading.
There is an up. I love this stuff.
I want to try again.
Okay, yeah.
I want to see if I can break.
You made it 4:16 to 4:36, 4:37.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I was laughing.
I don't know how
were you like?
You have ice water
like pinching yourself underneath? Like how are you?
He's got a stick pin over there. Every time he's about to laugh, he pokes him. It is horrifically bad.
Oh man.
Can we talk? So here's among many things. was it really necessary to call the prostitute faithless? Like, isn't the fact that she's not faithful the point of her profession?
Brother, if we start, it's way too early to start questioning things, in my opinion.
Way too early.
Yeah.
All right. Chapter the 2nd. Arriving after dusk in Gorzom, Grindr descended down a dismal alley, reining his horse before the beaten tavern. The red-haired giant strode into the dimly lit hostelry, reeking of foul odors and cheap wine. The air was heavy with the choking fumes, spewing from the smoldering torches encased within the den's earthen-packed walls. Tables were clustered with groups of drunken thieves, cutthroats, tossing dice or making love to willing prostitutes.
That was not Caleb that laughed, so he could keep going.
Eyeing a slender female crouched alone by the nearby bench, Grindr advanced, wishing to wholesomely occupy his time. The flickering torches cast weird shafts of luminescence dancing over the half-naked harlot of his choice.
45 seconds.
That's the half-naked harlot of his choice is the title of the episode. That's just done. I'm calling it now.
Making love to willing prostitutes.
That's the one that got me. That's the one that got me.
Oh.
Okay, so, Craig, did you want to go again?
Yeah, I'll go for a minute. I doubt I'll last a minute, but kind of like
that's what she said.
My sexual life. All right. Her stringy orchid twines of her hair swaying gracefully over the lithe, opaque nose as she raised a half-drained mug to her pale. Who can read this shit?
That's why it's a challenge. Oh, God. Okay.
Here goes Matt to finish up chapter 2.
So you okay? I see where you finished. Raise the.
He didn't finish. He failed.
Yeah. No, I see where he. Okay. Yeah. I see where he failed. Yeah. Okay. As she raised a half-drained mug to her pale red lips, glancing upward, the alluring complexion noted the stalwart giant as he rapidly approached. Turn the page. A faint glimmer sparked from the pair of deep blue ovals of the amorous female as she motioned toward Grindr, enticing him to join her. The barbarian seated himself upon a stool at the wench's side, exposing his body naked save for a loincloth, brandishing a long steel broadsword, an iron-spiraled battle helmet, and thick leather sandals to her unobstructed view. "Thou'st hast need to occupy your time, barbarian?" questioned the female. "Only if something worth offering is within my reach," stated Grindr, as his hands crept to embrace the tempting female who welcomed them with open willingness. "From where do you come, barbarian, and by what are you called?" gasped the complying wench, as Grindr smothered her lips with blazing touch of his flaming mouth. Okay, y'all got me.
Busted you.
Yeah.
This is like Conan.
I almost made it through that line.
This is okay. This guy has a Me
That
Too
wasn't
story.
you. That
right?
was us. You would have kept going.
Yeah, like that was totally our fault. But like we can all agree with that, right? Like whoever wrote this is definitely it has a Me Too story, right? Like this dude was an incel.
Well, every woman is a willing participant in this story.
Oh, this is so bad. This is
Conan romance stories.
Oh, there's no romance in this.
Or, whatever.
You're thinking Conan fan fiction.
What are those, the stories from back in the 80s where it had like...
Oh, the Harlequin romance?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is so bad.
It's fucking excellent.
Oh, no, that's not the word I would use.
I kind of want to know what happens to Grindr
yes,
at this point.
Let's do. We cannot stop with flaming mouth. That cannot be where we stop. Who's going next?
Caleb's turn next.
Oh my
Who? You want to keep trying? Or
yeah, I will. We're
Flaming mouth.
Flaming mouth was the last.
All right. For those of you at home, I'm just so sorry. So
You're welcome.
All right. The engrossed Titan ignored the queries of the inquisitive female, pulling her towards him and crushing her sagging nipples into his yearning chest. Without, God damn it, Craig! This is why girls didn't talk to nerds in the 80s.
Oh my God!
Like for the entire decade, this is why nerds didn't get laid.
Oh my God. All right. Without struggle, she gave in, winding her soft arms around the harshly bronzed hide of Gragner's corded shoulder blades, as his calloused hands caressed her firm, protruding bust. None of it makes sense. You make love well, wench, admitted Gragner.
This person's never touched a woman.
I'm thinking, made love, you kissed her.
This person's never touched a woman.
You make love well, winch. I love that. That's amazing.
Just go ahead and check that one off the box.
Oh my God.
Okay. He's not an unfeeling man, this Granger.
Oh my God.
Okay.
And here's the thing that you guys at home aren't seeing that we are. Grammatically, this is horrible.
Yeah,
we're having to add punctuation. We're having to split words that are combined.
And I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm trying to read just as it is, but naturally I'm correcting it.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah. Okay. Admitted Gringer as he reached for the vessel of potent wine his charge had been quaffing. A flying foot caught the mug Grinder had taken hold of, sending its blood-red contents sloshing over a flickering crescent. Leashing tongues of bright orange flame to the foot-trodden floor. "Remove yourself, Sirrah. The wench belongs to me," blabbered a drunken soldier, too far consumed by the influences of his virile brew to take note of the superior size of his adversary. Gringer lithely bounded from the startled female, his face lit up to the ashen red furiosity, and eyes locked in a searing ferrule blaze toward the swaying soldier. "To hell with you, braggart!" bellowed the angered accordion as he hefted his finely honed broadsword. The staggering soldier clumsily reached towards the pommel of his dangling sword, but before his hands ever touched the oaken hilt, a silvered flash was slicing the heavy air. The thews of the savage's lashing right arm bulged from the glistening bronzed hide as his blade bit deeply into the soldier's neck, lopping off the confused head of his senseless tormentor. With a nauseating thud, the severed oval toppled to the floor as the segregated torso of Gringer's bovine antagonist swayed, then collapsed in a pool of swirled crimson. In the confusion, the soldier's fellows confronted Gringer with unsheathed cutlasses directing toward the latter's scowling makeup. "The slut should have picked his quarry more carefully," roared the victor in a mocking baritone growl as he wiped his dripping blade on the prostrate form, and returned to its scabbard. "The fool should have shown more prudence. However, you shall rule your actions while rotting in the pits," stated one of the sprawled soldier's comrades. Gringer's hand began to remove his blade from the leather housing, but retarded the motion in face of the blades waving before his face. "Dismiss your hand from the hilt, barbarian, or you shall find a foot of steel sheathed in your gizzard." Gringer weighed his position, observing his plight, whereupon he took the soldier's advice as the only logical choice. To attempt to hack his way from his present predicament would only warrant his certain death. He was of no mind to bring upon his own demise if an alternate path presented itself. The will to necessitate his life forced him to yield to the superior force in hopes of a moment of carelessness later upon the part of his captors in which he would effect a more plausible means of escape. "You may steady your arms. I will go without a struggle." Your decision is a wise one, yet perhaps you would have been better off had you forced death. The soldier's mouth wrinkled to a sadistic grin of knowing mirth as he prodded his prisoner on with his sword point. After an indiscriminate period of marching through slinking alleyways and dim moonlighted streets, the procession confronted a massive seraglio. The palace area was surrounded by an iron grating with a lush garden upon all sides. The group was admitted through the gilded gateway, and Grindr was led along a stone pathway bordered by plush vegetation, lustfully enhanced by the moon's shimmering rays. Upon reaching the palace, the group was granted entrance, and after several minutes of explanation, led through several winding corridors to a richly draped chamber. Confronting the group was a short, stocky man seated upon a golden throne. Tapestries of richly draped regal blue silk covered the walls of the chamber, while the steps leading to the throne were plated with sparkling white ivory. The man upon the throne had a naked wench seated at each of his arms, and a trusted advisor seated in the back of him. At each corner of the chamber, a guard stood at attention, with upraised pikes supported in their hands, golden chainmail adorning their torsos, and barred helmets emitting scarlet plumes of enshrouded their heads. The man rose from his throne to the dais surrounding it. His plush turquoise robe dangled loosely from his chunky frame. The soldiers surrounding Grongar fell to their knees, with heads bowed to the stone masonry of the floor in fearful dignity to their sovereign liege. Explain the purpose of this intrusion upon my chateau. Your sovereignty, resplendent in noble grandeur, we have brought this yokel before you. The soldier gestured toward Grindr. For the redress of your all-knowing wisdom in judgment regarding his fate. Down on your knees, lout, and pay proper homage to your sovereign, commanded the pudgy noble of Grindr. By the surly beard of Murifink, Grindr kneels to no man, scowled the massive barbarian. You dare to deal this blasphemous act to me? You are indeed brave, stranger, yet your valor smacks of foolishness. I find you to be the only fool sitting upon your pompous throne, enhancing the rolling flabs of your belly in the midst of your elaborate luxury, and the soldier standing at Grinder's side smote him heavily in the face with the flat of his sword, cutting short the harsh words and knocking his battered helmet to the masonry with the echoing clang. The paunchy noble's sagging round face flushed suddenly pale, then hastily lit up to a lustrous cherry-red radiance. His lips trembled with a malicious rage, while emitting a muffled, sibilant gibberish. His sagging flabs rolled like a tub of upset jelly, then compressed as he sucked in his gut in an attempt to conceal his softness. The prince regained his stature, then spoke to the soldiers surrounding Grindr, his face conforming to an ugly expression of sadistic humor. Take this uncouth heathen to the vault of misery, and be sure that his agonies are long and drawn out before death can release him. As you wish, sire. Your command shall be heeded immediately, answered the soldier on the right of Grindr as he stared into the barbarian's seemingly unaffected face. The advisor seated in the back of the noble slowly rose and advanced to the side of his master, motioning the wenches seated at his sides to remove themselves. He lowered his head and whispered to the noble, Eminence, the punishment you have decreed will cause much misery to this scum, yet it will last only a short time. Then release him to the land beyond the sufferings of the human body. Why not mellow him in one of the subterranean vaults for a few days, then send him to life labor in one of your buried mines? To one such as he, a life spent in confinement of the Stygian pits will be infinitely more appropriate in lasting torture. The noble cupped his drooping double chin in the folds of his brimming palm, meditating for a moment upon the rationality of the counselor's words, then raised his shaggy brown eyebrows and turned toward the advisor's eyes aglow. As always, Agafund, your You speak with great wisdom. Your words ring of great knowledge concerning the nature of one such as he, saith the king. The noble turned toward the prisoner with a noticeable shimmer reflecting in his frog-like eyes and his lips contorting to a greasy grin. I have decided to void my previous decree. The prisoner shall be removed to one of the palace's underground vaults. There he shall stay until I have decided that he has sufficiently simmered, whereupon he is to be allowed to spend the remainder of his days at a labor of one of my mines. Upon hearing this, Gringer realized that his face would be far less merciful than death to one such as he, who is used to roaming the countryside at will. A life of confinement would be more than his body and mind could stand for. This type of life would be immersibly worse than death. I shall never understand the ways if yours twisted civilization. I simply defend my honor and am condemned to life confinement by a pig who sits on his royal ass-wooing whores and knows nothing of the affairs of the land he imagines to rule. Lectures Gringer? ? Enough of this. Away with the slut before I lose my control. Seeing the peril of his position, Gringer searched for an opening. Crushing prudence to the sword, he plowed into the soldier at his left arm, taking hold of his sword and bounding to the dais, supporting the prince before the startled guards could regain their composure. Agafund leaped Gringer and his sire, but found a sword blade permeating the length of his ribs before he could loosen his weapon. The counselor slumped to his knees, and Gringer slid his crimson blade into Agafund's rib cage. The fat prince stood undulating in unsurmountable fear before the edge of the fiery-maned comet, his flabs of jellied blubber pulsating to and fro in ripples of flowing terror. Where is your wisdom and power now, your majesty? Growled Gringer. The prince went rigid as Gringer discerned him glazing over his shoulder. He swiveled to note the cause of the noble's attention, raised his sword over his head, and prepared to leash a vicious downward cleft, but fell short as the heft of the steel-rimmed pike clashed against his unguarded skull. Then blackness and solitude, silence enshrouding and ever peaceful reigned supreme. Before me, Sarah, before me as always, ha 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 ha, cackled the noble in chapter 2.
So, I never want to play poker with Matt Trogdon ever.
Yeah, how he got through that, I have no idea. The pictures of these two characters is one looked like a bad version of Doctor Strange. Yep. And then the other one, I don't know how to even describe.
So I'll describe it. So what Matt was saying earlier is, there are some illustrations with this that are very, very crude. The first one we see is just Doctor Strange. The second one, it appears to be the noble. He's draped in finery with some type of
apparent finery
crown on his head, and this is all very crudely drawn. But he is, you can see the rolls of his neck, and he is smoking a joint.
Or a poorly drawn cigar.
Yeah, I'm going to say a joint because it makes it better.
This is definitely drawn by a 10-year-old creating their character for D&D.
Oh, 1,000%. So here's I would love it if a company like Ablaze took this and actually made a comic out of it. I want that so bad. So,
Matt, there's no doubt you set the world record.
No.
I don't even know how long you went. I forgot to start at that time. But there's no doubt you set the world record.
Oh, man.
At an entire chapter without laughing.
So how does one actually do that? Like how do you read like that without just dying?
I don't know. I just kind of get in the zone. I just kind of get in the zone, and I don't really stop to think about what I'm reading. Is really the thing. I think the trick is you don't picture it. If you don't picture it,
I can't.
But it's it's really hard to picture sagging nipples.
No, I like that he keeps referring to the barbarian as the slut.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I like that. I appreciate that. That's a more worldly use of the term.
Yeah.
Okay. So where can the folks at home go find this?
Google it. Google the Eye of Argon. and there are PDF versions, free PDF versions online.
The next chapter is only 3 paragraphs long.
Oh my goodness!
And then it's split into a half a chapter, which is also only 5 paragraphs.
Oh, it is. Yeah, chapter 3 and a half.
What?
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, I will have to finish reading this on my own time. I don't know that I can get through it. My God, it's bad.
Okay, so if you're a listener, I'm going to give you a challenge of your own. I want you to go download this PDF. It's free. It will cost you $0. I want you to post either on Twitter or on our Facebook page or somewhere. I want you to record yourself trying to read this. Start at chapter 3, and then send us a video of you trying to read this. I want to see how long our listeners, the folks who tune into the show.
I don't think I made it past 2 sentences.
No, I know I didn't. I did better the second time, but no. There was undulating, and then I lost it. Like,
sagging nipples. What was it? Mouths aflame or something?
Flaming lips.
Flaming lips, yes.
Wow.
This is a guy that had a large vocabulary that didn't know what to do with it.
He had like a stack of books with words highlighted.
Yeah.
And just was going through trying to find this. This is why editors exist. This right here. This is a prime example of why editors exist in the world.
No editor could have gotten through this. That is an editor who would have quit his job.
Oh,
yeah, after like the first paragraph, they would have sent it back and said, you need to refine your work.
Oh, man.
Like what? So, I mean, we've all read like the classic barbarian stories and stuff, and like you can see what he's doing. Like he's trying to emulate them as far as like setting the picture in your mind. Like he's read Tolkien. Like you can see some of that, but it's just so ill-begotten.
I can envision what he's saying.
Yeah,
that doesn't make it well.
No,
written.
just the way that he crafts
it just means my mind crafts words into pictures.
Well, apparently, in reading the back matter of the book, the history of the book, there are people that have gotten together and played this out as a play.
Oh, my God.
And in doing so, more things come to light that one reading it can easily miss. Most notably, when Gringer is in combat, what apparently happens is he'll talk about he draws his sword with his right hand, and then during the fight references with his left hand, drove the steel home into his... So all of a sudden he's switching hands. He's using different hands at different times. So these things are played out live. Yeah, apparently
it's my favorite part of what we read, and there was a lot of good parts, but as far as character inconsistencies, he kills the one soldier, wipes his blade on his dead body, resheathes the sword while the other soldiers are coming to arrest him.
Yeah.
So that he has to unsheath it, and then he can't because...
Yeah. There's a lot of sexual metaphor there. Yeah. There's got to be.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I like when he's getting undressed for the woman, and he was clad naked, except for all of these things that he's wearing that makes him not, which is just what Conan wears.
He kept his helmet on, as all good barbarians will do.
He's got his loincloth, and he's got his scabbard, and he's got his helmet on, so he wasn't in his sandals.
I mean, that's pretty much all a barbarian wears.
Yeah.
Oh, that was. Thank you.
That was a chore.
Thank you.
A chore? I thought this was a fucking delight.
I have not laughed.
For those of you at home, Caleb and I were sitting here in the background just covering our laughs to keep from disrupting Matt. But
why does this exist in the world?
Oh man, I'm so glad.
What did this? I really want to know what this individual went on to do with his or her life.
Yeah,
he became a professor of literature.
Oh, that's terrifying.
No. So I've read 2 different accounts. Apparently he was interviewed a couple of times in life. And I've read 2 different accounts. One, that he found some joy in the fact that this made so many people happy. But also read another account where he said that he was kind of insulted that so many people were laughing at him. So apparently, I don't know, maybe the joke got old. Maybe towards the end of his life, he's like, okay, I'm sick of being laughed at, type thing.
Yeah.
It's just, this is one of those things that I'm very, very thankful for the internet for.
Yeah.
Because we would not have this if
exactly.
it was not for the internet. This would have been lost to time.
Forget the Tide Pod Challenge.
Oh,
forget
man.
all of these other challenges. Try and read this. I think it's 8 chapters or something.
I think it is something like 8 chapters.
And there are some half chapters, evidently.
Yeah, a chapter may be 4 paragraphs. So it's all over the place.
What are those awards that are given out, like the Razzie Awards?
I know what you're talking about. There's every year that's called the Bullwith Google Bad Writing Awards.
Yeah.
And I can spend endless time reading those submissions. Now, these are people that write bad on purpose. And there are some in there that are side-splittingly funny that I remember word for word to this day, and I read them 5 years ago or something like that. They're amazing. My favorite ones typically are the crime noir bad writing. The crime noir bad writing is usually the best. But it's all genres of bad writing. Yeah, it's amazing.
You find yourself with time to kill.
Oh,
kids.
Man. If you're feeling down and out, if you're feeling bummed out, Google bad writing contest. It's a Bullwith something dash. If that doesn't lift your spirits, no drug will.
Well, speaking of lifting spirits, there's a way that we do that every week. Usually happens around Wednesday, maybe Tuesday if you're a DC fan. But that's when the new comic books come out, and we hope at least that the writing therein is leaps and bounds better than what we just experienced.
It will be. That's the safest bet one could make.
One would think, but you never know. There's been some poorly written comics as well. So, but each week we try to guesstimate what the book that we are really going to be excited about is going to be, and so this week is like the others. What are you all going to pick up this next week that you're excited about? I'll start us off since I already have the mic. There is a new series coming out. It's from Dark Horse Comics. It is written by Mr. Cullen Bunn with art by an individual that I know that you all both have lauded copiously, Mr. Andrea Moody. Is doing the artwork on that. So I'm really, like I said, it comes from Dark Horse. It's a fantasy tale, two-world split between dreams and reality. After his son disappears, a broken-down man braves the nightmarish dreamscape in order to find him and battle the ruthless cult that seeks to rule the land of dreams as the barrier between the realities starts to collapse. It lists of things, a bunch of books written by Cullen Bunn that if you enjoyed those, you will enjoy this. I really dig the cover to this. It's got a very, it's very watercolor, very ink wash, where it actually shows you, the top half of the page is just a guy walking down the street. The bottom half is that split world where it shows you kind of the balance in between the two. So I'm really looking forward to this. So
nice.
Check it out.
So I'm recommending people go pick up from Fantagraphics Red Room #2 by Ed Piskor. This one I recommended #1. After #1 came out, the popularity of the book went way up after its initial release. A lot of people were trying to get it. So once again, I'm mentioning this series. Check this out. It is not for everybody, as I mentioned in my review.
Sure.
But I enjoyed it immensely for it's got a very, like I said, head shop comic feel. It's very subversive, even though it's violent and gory, which I'm not a gore fan, but despite that, I can't wait to see how this issue progresses. And each issue is a standalone issue, so you can get in at any time.
I am one for whom the book is not for. I gave it a shot, but that's fine. Like I enjoyed it for what it was, and I'm really glad you I think you both enjoyed it.
Issue 1 sitting at home on the stack. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, do that today, please.
I love that y'all loved it. That makes me happy.
So back in the day, Archie comics were known for not just Archie, but for superhero comics. And none other than Rob Liefeld is revitalizing these with a series of one-shots.
Why?
And the first one comes out this week, and it's called The Shield by Archie
Comics.
Yeah. And with Rob in charge, I can only imagine lots of pouches and very few feet shown. But this is being solicited is the first issue in an all-new series of Mighty Crusaders one-shots.
Yeah.
A series of one-shots.
Yeah. So now Rob's involvement, notwithstanding, I don't think he's doing the art on them. I think he's just writing them.
No. Really?
Yeah.
That's worse.
Because it's also got Aaron Lepresti and David Gallagher on it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we all go to Liefeld for the story.
What?
Noted writer.
This is strange.
Yeah.
So, he has been writing more lately. I will pick this up and read it because I dig the old Archie superhero books. Not necessarily because of the creative team on it,
Right.
but I will pick it up for that. The subject material gets my interest more than the creative team on it. So
Right.
I don't know. I will highly likely be disappointed in the in the story, but I'll pick it up and read it.
Check it out. Well, let us know how it is.
If you are into those old Archie stories, I mean, they tried to revitalize these a few years back when they relaunched Archie with all new art styles and new creative teams and so forth on it. And some of them are really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can just imagine that the Shield will be the best of all of them.
Oh,
They relaunched that Black Circle
Yeah.
a few years ago. I read a few of those.
It was really there was one Black Mask
Yeah.
about the cop that was
I read
a
that
heroin
one.
addict.
Yep.
Was really freaking good.
Yeah.
the Sabrina stories they did that had Veronica and Andy Fish doing the artwork on those were incredibly well done. And then I loved like they did Jughead the Hunger, the werewolf story.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic. Which I realize that's not the superhero stuff, but I mean just
Yeah, I get where you're
branching out
going
in
though.
other
Just
genre.
them relaunching and revitalizing their line.
Yeah.
Line wide.
Yeah.
As somebody once told me, an ex-Archie artist, the worst place to be if you're an Archie artist is working for Archie Comics
Ooh,
right now.
Yeah.
Because they changed everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. They tried to I think and
For the
in my
most part, it
opinion for the
worked.
better.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. Well, all right. Well, you've got your marching orders. You know what you're supposed to go do. You go and you download the Eye of Argon and you film yourself reading chapter 3 and you send it to us and we will judge you accordingly.
we will judge you regardless.
No,
but yeah.
but regardless and accordingly, and we will let you know who does the best job. I really, really actually want some of you guys
Yeah,
to do
please
this.
do this, guys. It's
Yeah.
it can
Yeah.
only lead to entertainment for all of the internet.
Yeah, you can find those places to drop it on if you feel like putting it out there for everyone. You can drop it on our Facebook group. It's on and popping, as the kids say. We have a good time up there. You can just go right in the search bar and type in Southern Fried Geekery Podcast, and we will come up. We also have Instagram and Twitter. You can tag us on those at SFG Podcast, as it were, on both of those things. And then if you don't want to put that out for all the world to see, maybe you want it to, just stay between us, and we will honor your wishes. That's a lie, but we will say that we will. You can email your video of you reading this to southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com.
I think you should put it on YouTube and then just send us the link.
And if you have young ones, I think this makes a great bedtime story.
1000%.
Yeah.
This should be on TikTok. This is ripe for TikTokers.
It absolutely is.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Let's start that trend.
I'm not doing TikTok. Y'all do TikTok.
I'm not doing TikTok.
I
I'm
really-
saying let's start the trend of people doing Eye of
Let's start the
Argon.
trend of telling other people to do
Right?
it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
what.
I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm too old for TikTok.
I just refuse at this point, Roger. Anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, go check us out on all those pages. We hope you have enjoyed this show. It was certainly fun. It's a little bit different than what we always do. We will be back here next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say where I'm from, to talk about some comics. We will do our thing again where we lay out a roundtable book, and then we'll each tell you about something that we're reading. We hope you come back for more. We certainly enjoy it. You can do us a solid if you want to. Go on whatever podcatcher platform, especially iTunes, if that's how you listen to us. Give us a rating and review. We would appreciate 5 stars, but hey, if you don't think we deserve 5 stars, then don't leave us a rating and review.
Is iTunes giving us a promotion for?
Well, it helps out with the algorithms, as it were. So if people can go check on there and say if there's a bunch of good reviews, that helps. But it also, if you get a bunch of good reviews, it will move you up. in the queue.
And we are definitely the top of comic book.
Look, we provide a quality service.
I
We
believe
will
so.
read you the Eye of Argon
Yeah.
or
That's
whatever it is.
For each bad review, we'll do another chapter. So check us out.
We will threaten you with bad readings. Actually, Matt did
Don't
fantastic.
threaten me with a good time.
right.
Yeah.
No, Matt did great. Matt is now the official orator of our
Yeah,
podcast.
I think he should start like a Reading Rainbow podcast, except it's like bad sci-fi or fantasy.
Oh, man,
I want to
that'd be
hear Matt Trogdon read children's book with the gusto that he reads bad fantasy. Like, if you can read me like Where the Wild Things Are, but channel that Eye of
Wait,
Argon.
I thought you said bad children's books.
No.
Or did you just say
Children's books with
Gotcha.
the gusto that he reads bad fantasy.
I'm like, don't you
No,
disparage
it's
Where
favorite
the
book.
Wild Things
One of
Are.
my favorite childhood books. So, all right, that's it. We've got nothing else. We've given you all we have. Have a great end to the month, and we will see you next time. And you can go forth and love some comics from here on out.
Make love well, wench.
I was wondering which line you would pull from.